Start this recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
You gonna join me?
Yeah. All right, well, I think, Jeff, maybe just give us a thumbs up if you're ready to kick things off, because what I can see is we've got 4, and I'm thinking that we've got probably those that you were looking to have. Maybe just a heads up on a yay or nay on that. He may still be on his phone call. So anyways, we'll give it here just another minute or so. And as you guys are getting on, just as a heads up, we have a message board on the right hand side of your screen. Certainly we're gonna open this up and allow it to be pretty informal as well. But there is that option as well to throw out a question. We can see it as we're talking through products. So any direct questions that you have or thoughts, by all means, we welcome those. This is as much as informative for you as it is for us, as well as we learn about your challenges, your questions, things that you want to get out of this as well. So we have been doing a fair amount of these. This is the new way of connecting with folks these days, given the situation that we're dealing with. So we certainly appreciate the time and the interest that you all are giving us here today. So, but we'll kick off just as a brief introduction. I'm Nick Cox, Business Development Manager here for Teco. Been with the organization here just coming on 3 months, so rather new to the organization. As you know, Jeff Henry is in the upstate New York area, rep for Teco, so he's asked that we get together and talk through, as you're going to see here, all the products that we've got laid out that Teco offers, and along with some questions that you have as we go along, and hopefully you find this informative and helpful. With me here is Scott Johnston.
I'm Regional Sales Manager over the Piranha, Tulex, Teco, Raptor type items. I'll be the one going over all the items for you. So, and I've been with Teco since '94.
Excellent. So we'll go ahead and kick off. Jeff alluded to, as we kind of tee things up here, we'll give you a brief intro on Teco itself. And then what we're going to do is, at a high level, we're going to go through all the portfolio here that we've got in front of us. So we will say up front, it's quite extensive, so we don't mean to overwhelm you. And it will be at a high level that we'll go through each of them. So as we go further, if there's deeper questions with things or a sidebar webinar we can have to go deeper, we certainly can do that as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott. He's got great knowledge on this and is going to talk us through these. Scott.
Wow, I've never heard my name and great in the same sentence. So thanks, Dick. One thing, you guys are the only ones that are on this webinar today, just so you know. We don't have other distributors or any end users. It's just, right now, just the 5 of you guys, plus Jeff. So if you've got questions, interrupt me, stop me. If something doesn't make sense to you, or you can't see or hear, don't hesitate to holler. Like I said, it's just you guys this morning. But as Nick alluded to the fact, we do have a wide variety of items, and for the most part, it all focuses around work holding. So if you've got to hold your workpiece to machine it, we have something that can help you. In the beginning, Teco's been around since 1926 here in Dayton, Ohio, and we started making, it was a tool shop that started out making clamping kits with step blocks and nuts and bolts and washers, and which we still do today, and that's still the bread and butter of our company today. It's what's keep the lights and stuff running here. We sell a lot of clamping kits, a lot of spring plungers, a lot of washers. As work holding started to evolve, though, we bought the Tulex Vise company roughly 20 some years ago out of Meadville, Pennsylvania, and our Vise line here competes really with the Kurt work holding line. We do compete somewhat with the Chick. That is really the only 2 vices that we really run into in the field. And then 4 years ago, we bought the Raptor product line out of California. It's still made in California by the same shop that invented it and started it and ran with it, but we do own the rights to the Raptor product line. and it's dovetail work holding. And then about a year ago, we entered into an agreement with the Piranha company out of Switzerland to do 0-point work holding and self-centering vices. And so as you can see, we've got a wide variety of stuff to go through today. We're not going to take 4 or 5 hours today. We can do that another day if you wish. But I'm going to start here really with our vise work holding, which is, for lack of a better term, it's the big ticket items. When you sell vices, it's usually quite a few, as Jeff can attest to, and the orders can be fairly large. A guy buys a horizontal machine with 30 pallets on it, and you're going to put vices on it. You know, that can end up being a big chunk of change. And it's also the one that we've had the longest of what we're going over today. And basically, you're familiar with the Curt line, like I said before. And Curt, their bread and butter is really the single station vise, the D675, and then the D688, and now the DX6, which is just a big 6-inch single station vise. We also have that. I don't have one to show you, but we carry the 6-inch single station. We have the big 8-inch single station, and then we also have that in a 4-inch model. What I'm showing you today, let me backtrack. Those single stations are really used for one part only. You can do two, but particularly they're usually just putting a big slab of steel in them, cranking them down as hard as you can, and then milling them. With the double station vise, as you can see, there's 2 stations now. So I can do 2 parts, or I can actually do 2 parts in each station to do 4 parts total in one setup. Now, a lot of questions we get on this, well, can I do more than 2 parts per station? The answer is no. And the reason that is, if you've got 2 parts that you're putting in, you can obviously, the jaws will tighten on 2 parts. But if I add a 3rd part to it, so now if I'm putting 3 parts into these jaws, now the jaws are only going to clamp on, because these probably have uneven surfaces. They're not milled flat and parallel, so the jaws are only going to clamp on the highest or the thickest parts. So invariably, you're going to have one of these items that's going to fall out. So that's why we can only do 2 parts at a time per station. And the jaws that I have, I guess let me show you how the jaws go on and off. The center jaws use socketed cap screws, and they just get bolted onto the center, which is not unlike the competition. All of our competitors do the socketed cap screws down through the center to hold the jaw on. The biggest advantage we have, ours is also reversible. So once you take the jaw off, you can flip it upside down and bolt it back down onto the center of your vise. And that allows you to machine the top and the bottom of the center jaw. Similarly with the outside jaws, they snap on and off. They're also reversible. There's a little locating pin inside the jaw, and there's a 45-degree angle on this knuckle, so I can put it on either direction. And again, that allows me to machine the back and the front of these soft jaws. They're called soft jaws because they're made out of aluminum, but they're also available in 1018 and 4140 steel. They're still called soft jaws, even though you make them out of steel, but they're called soft jaws, machinable jaws. We also make them taller than the vise, or taller than the standard jaw. And we also make them wider than the standard jaw as well. We have done special jaws. We can do that too. We get a lot of questions throughout the year. Can we do something out of a different material or a different size? And we can do that as long as the quantity presents itself to be efficient to do that. Now, if you don't want to use the machinable jaws, can you do hard jaws? We do have hard jaws, and basically with a hard jaw, we have this carrier jaw piece, and it's got tapped holes in it, and you bolt your hard jaw that you're familiar with to the either side of this, and they snap on, just like normal. And what I'm showing you here, though, is, I don't know, I'll have Nick show you the inside of this. It's our AccuSnap. And show them the jaw, the front of the jaw, too. And that's our parallel system. And the parallels snap into that little master jaw on the front, which I'll show you right here. I've got one sitting on here. And of course this one would go on this side. And now it allows me to take them. I've got a machinable parallel that has a little gib on the back. And it snaps in. Then use your little bondus wrench, pop it right back out. I can use standard parallels. And they come in 8 different heights. You can see the different heights from the lowest to the tallest. We also have mill angles too that snap in. And we also have a gib. Give me that gib on the bottom there. If a customer's got their own parallels, they've already built up, they've taken their own piece of steel or aluminum, made their own parallels. We have what we call a retrofit gib, and basically you would mill a pocket in the bottom of your parallel. This would get bolted to it, and now this would get snapped into our AccuSnap system, so they don't have to remake all their parallels in a shop. They buy just this little gib, attach it to their current parallels, and be able to use our AccuSnap system. This is a 4-inch model here. We also make a 6 and an 8-inch. The wider they are, the longer they are. We also do 4-sided tombstones, or we call quads. We also do hydraulics. So we have hydraulic laydowns, we have hydraulic quads, and you can also make them a single station vise. This is a conversion plate. And basically what you're doing is you're taking your jaw like this. Whoop, where's that? There, like this. You'll notice it's got the tapped holes in the back, and then there's tapped holes on the vise body itself. So this conversion plate gets bolted into those tapped holes, so this jaw here is now a fixed jaw. It won't move. And then the front jaw will move back and forth. So you're going to get a lot wider single station if needed. Because we do get people asking all the time, well, I've got a 12-inch part, can I clamp it in your vise? Well, you can, but you're going to have to make it a single station vise. Any questions so far on our Toolex vise? I did mention Chick is one of our competitors, and the biggest difference with the Chick and us is the body. Ours is 80,000 psi ductile cast iron, and theirs is aluminum. So if there is a weight consideration on a machine, ours is going to be heavier than the Chick. Other than that, the features that we have outweigh any of the other items that Chick has to offer, and as well as Curt. Price-wise, we're pretty much even with both Chick and Curt. The pricing is. Now, what they do with discount and all that kind of stuff, I can't answer, but as far as list pricing, we're pretty much all in the same ballpark on whatever it is you're looking at. So basically, when Jeff Henry works with you guys, it's really selling the features. Jeff has one of these vices in his trunk, and the best way to sell against any of our competitors is to get this in their hands, let them play with it, let it see how the jaws go on and off, and usually if you can get the customer to do that, we don't lose the order. I will say the only time we've ever lost orders like that is if the shop is just filled with Curt vices or Chick vices. It sometimes could be a little more difficult to get them to start switching over, but invariably they'll have an issue with one or the other, and that usually is why we're in there to begin with. And so once they see how this works, they may put it on one of their new machines or one machine that's totally separate from what they're doing in the shop, and then it usually just blossoms from there. So as far as CAD drawings for these two, they're not downloadable from the website, but email us and we can get your customer any kind of CAD drawings they want. And I will tell you on the quads, the 4-sided tombstones, they come with standard base plates, but we also have a 400 and 500 millimeter base plates that can go on them as well. So, and those are manufactured here at our facility here in Dayton, Ohio. We make all the Toolex items here at our facility here. The reason I brought that up is because I'm going to be talking about Raptor, and Raptor is made in California. And then, of course, the Piranha stuff, as I mentioned, is in Switzerland. But all the Teco components and all the Toolex items are made here at our facility in Dayton. Any questions so far? I mean, obviously the Vise technology is nothing new. It's been out there for a long time. Just some of the little features and benefits are a little bit different, but most of your customers know what Vises are, so that you don't have to re-educate them on how those work. And then, like I said, about 4 or 5 years, or it'll be coming up on 5 years, we got into the Raptor business. And Raptor basically, back then, 5-axis was quote a buzzword. Everybody wanted to do 5-axis work holding. What does 5-axis work holding really mean? Basically, 5-axis work holding, you've got a machine that's got a pallet, and the pallet will move, it'll spin, it twists, and you can get to all 5 axes of a part, as opposed to a vise that sits onto a vertical machine on a bed, and the bed just moves back and forth and up and back, and the cutting tool moves back, up and down. So just your XYZ axis is really all your machining in, so you can't get a lot of different angles on your parts. You have to keep fixturing your part. You know, with a vise, you have to put it in once to do it, twice, 3, 4, 5 different times to get a part out. And even then, you may not even have to do more than that to get all the little compound angles. So with the 5-axis machine, as they've sort of eliminated that. However, it's hard to put a vise this size. Most 5-axis pallets are fairly small to get them to spin and move in the machine bed. So now you're limited to, well, how do I fixture the part? Well, that's where the Raptor product comes in. Raptor products range, as far as the clamps go, all the way down from a 1/4 inch dovetail, and we go all the way almost up to it's a 2 3/4 inch dovetail. So we can do the tiny parts all the way up to the mid-sized part, and this is our 2 1/4 inch dovetail, as you can see. And then we have a 1/2, 3/4, 1.5 inch dovetail type fixtures, which I'll show you to accommodate whatever size parts they need. So with your 5-axis machine, as I said, they've got a pallet on it, and for our fixtures to fit on their pallets, some are direct mounts, they'll fit right onto the pallet. Other machines, they're not. So we have to figure out what is the fixture going to go on. Is it going to go on the actual bed of the machine? Is it going to go onto a vertical machine on an indexer? So the first thing we need to know on the Raptor side is what is it we're going to be attaching the fixture to. Once we know that, we have a variety of these adapter plates, which I showed you the smallest one here. This is our smallest one. And we go all the way up to, this is our largest one that I'm showing you right here. You can see the kind of and I take that back. There is one larger than this, but I didn't want to bring it in because it would bust the table. But you can see the difference in size of the pallets that these will fit on. This one is really designed more for like your Haas UMB 500, 750, and 1000 with the really large 5-axis pallets, where the rest of these are really more designed for the smaller pallets, which are like 100 millimeter up to 210 millimeter pallet. So basically this has our Raptor mounting on the face. It gets bolted to the pallet of your machine, and from that now I am able to put an 1.5 inch dovetail fixture, and then from the dovetail fixture I've got here's the 3/4 dovetail fixture. The dovetail is a little bit smaller. It has the Raptor mounting, and then from that our Raptor fixtures. You may be thinking, well, what if I need something even smaller? How do the small ones get on this fixture? Well, some of our other smaller Raptor fixtures come with dovetails already on the bottom. So now when I've got my larger dovetail on the machine, I can just take the smaller one and it bolts right onto the base fixture that you have. So you can take it off, back on whenever you might need a smaller fixture. This one has a dovetail on the bottom as well, which goes in there and you can clamp it in. So as you can see, the versatility of once you've got the adapter plate onto your 5-axis machine, you've got a base Raptor fixture, then the type of fixturing is virtually endless because of the way it stacks. It even goes, this one will fit on the bigger one. And then a lot of the questions are, well, dovetail, why would I use dovetail? Well, the biggest thing with a dovetail is when you're holding on a dovetail, and a dovetail is just like a dove's tail. That's why they call it a dovetail. It's a 60-degree angle. So when your parts clamp in, or your fixture clamps into that, this part's not going anywhere. It's being held tight. You can crash tools into it. It's not going to fly out. You're not going to get any lift. And I can also machine. This gets on the machine. I can actually machine all 5 sides. So I got my cutting tool. I can do all 5 sides all in one setup. So then when I'm done, I can take this off, take it over to my vise, put it into a vise, finish the bottom. So within 3 setups, I've got one complete part. This would have taken probably 8 or 9 different setups the traditional way. And with this one, you just got to take the bottom off. So as you can see, how much more productivity you're going to have using a dovetail type application, and also the wasted material. You see how much wasted material is left? It's just that little piece. Which, if you're doing expensive material like Inconel or something exotic, you definitely do not want to waste any more material than you have to. So there's a cost savings that too. And one of the biggest cost savings, though, if I can put these fixtures on my machine, get my part locked into place, I can go home and come back the next morning. These parts are already done, and I've only got one more op to do, and they're finished.
And what do they call that, Scott? It's called lights out manufacturing.
Lights out.
It's a big benefit. Hear that lots.
And the reason I bring that up also is the whole idea is why the Raptor product was invented. Was the company out in California bought some Matsura machines, and the Matsura pallets were this size. Well, they didn't have anything to go on them. They couldn't put a Kurt Vise on it, so they developed their own little dovetail fixture called the Raptor, and they put it on their little Matsura machines. Well, they probably have 60 to 90 pallets out there all loaded up with the different fixtures, and they can go home and let this stuff run all night while the lights are off. And their biggest concern, because they're in California and you know how expensive real estate is and taxes and insurance, to be competitive in the marketplace, they cannot afford to have individuals run one machine 24 hours a day. Right. They just could not, they could not compete with all the other competitors, a company in Mississippi even that's got lower wages and older machines and lower taxes and all that kind of stuff. So they had to figure out a way they can make parts the least cost or for the least amount of money.
Yeah, the key here is that Scott's getting around is the spindle, and we hear a lot about how many hours in a given day is somebody running that spindle. So when we say lights out manufacturing, and it's always one of those questions, well, how many hours are you getting to run today? And now with this solution and them getting lights out manufacturing, I mean, conservatively, we say 25% increase, conservatively, and it's substantially more than that. But that's a figure you can throw out as a differentiator that when you're talking about these fixtures, what this offers to somebody and how much impact it makes from the bottom line, straight to sales.
And keep in mind when you're out in a shop and you see a machine's not running, the cost of a machine average around, across the country, depending where you live, is about $200 an hour. So if your machine's not running, it's costing that company $200 an hour to sit there. So the bean counters in the front office, when they walk through the shop and you're cutting hair or not cutting at all, you can sit there with a stopwatch and you can just see the dollars going out the window because they're not making parts. So the more we can help the customer keep the chips flowing, the happier they're going to be. And not only keeping the chips flowing, but they're going to keep the right chips flowing. Mm-hmm. So they're getting good parts also. And to be more productive, we also have multi-part items too. And the nice thing about our multi-part fixtures, they also have a dovetail on the bottom. So if I'm already doing this project with this part, it's done. I'm doing another fixture. I need smaller parts. I just take that off, pop that in, lock it down, and now I've already changed up my setup in just a matter of minutes, and I can start running 4 parts at a time. I can take this off, put another one on. This happens to be a 45-degree angle. Also has the dovetail on the bottom. I just changed up my setup, so now I'm ready to go with this product. I take this one off. This one is another 4-sided one. This already comes with a boss in the bottom, so it mounts directly to one of my risers. And it also comes with this little guy right here, which is a 3/4 dovetail with a 5C collet on the end. So this particular part could be used in your lathe. It can be used with a 5C collet adapter. And this goes to, like a Haas has a 5C lathe. So this has an internal thread that goes right onto the male thread on that 5C indexer. And there is a video that shows how this is used on our Raptor website. Take this off, just change out my part up again, bolt this one back on. And now let's say I need a large, wide, longer part. We also have the longer parts, also come with the 1.5-inch dovetail. So I can pop that in place, and I can do longer part.
And Scott, what's that? What industry do you think that's used in?
This was used in medical or gun manufacturing. In particular, it was designed by a medical facility in Memphis because they were doing a longer part like this in a smaller fixture. And as you can tell, when you start doing the ends, it's going to start to vibrate and move. So they decided they needed a longer piece. And I will say a majority of the items in the Raptor family were designed by end users over the years. Not so much now since we've had it, but when they started, they'd have a customer say, hey, could you make one of these that would hold a longer part? So Raptor designed it, made it, and put it in the catalog. So this is, like I said, designed for more delicate or longer parts to become more rigid. And just like this one right here was made for one customer in particular, is why it was designed, but it's a direct mount through the top to your machine to do a larger part itself. Any questions on the Raptor product line?
Can you hear me, Scott?
I can.
Okay, so, you know, if you have two of the little 4 stations that you're mounting on top of another dovetail fixture, what's the repeatability on that?
Well, as far as taking this, onto here.
Yes, and then you have another identical setup that you're just, you know, so you take that out, put the next one in, and type of thing.
So if anybody didn't hear that, he wanted to know if I've got 2 of these sitting side by side or whatever, and I'm putting this fixture onto here. I take it off. I go to put it onto this exact same setup. What's the repeatability? And with Raptor, I'll tell you in the beginning, Raptor was designed as a one-off fixture. What do I mean by that?
Okay.
Basically, I'm mounting a piece of steel or aluminum, milling my part, taking it off. It never comes back to this fixture. It's done. That's the whole premise of the dovetail fixturing. However, we have found now that people have taken the parts, go to the CMM, inspect them, bring them back to put on the fixture again. So what happened is there is a locating key here in this dovetail fixture. And in the beginning, basically, it was just a socket-head cap screw. They bought them from a master car, so it didn't have any tolerancing. So once we figured out people are actually bringing parts back onto these fixtures, we have now made them, these are machined locators within a half a thousandths. Now, having said that, that's all I have control over. I've got a fixture here with a locating key that's within a half a thousandths. The issue now comes with the customer, because the customer has to put the dovetail on his fixture or his part. So depending on how he makes his dovetail and the locating slot dictates how accurate this will go back on and off. Now, as far as our parts are concerned, the ones that we get out of the box, they will be within a half a thousandths taking it on and back off again, because we're the ones that put the dovetail on these particular parts. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. And the only other question is how do you feel is the best way to overcome the customer objection to, well, now I have another operation that I have to do to my stock?
Oh, yeah.
Putting dovetail, and I know you can, you know, just the fact that it pulls it down, it holds it tight, you can machine much faster. But what other benefits are used on
the first question I always ask as soon as they come up with that wall is, I say, how many operations are you doing now? How many times do you have to touch this part to get it to look like this? Now, if the guy goes 8 or 9, well, then you say, what if you could do it in 3 operations? And they're like, well, what do you mean? Well, all I mean is you got to put your dovetail on, put it in, machine it, take it out, take the dovetail off. That's 3 operations, it's done. And you're doing 8 or 9, do a time study. You will get the guy, though, that just is adamant about having to dedicate another machine to put a dovetail on. They're like, I don't have any way to put dovetails on, or all my machines are being utilized, and they're looking for an excuse not to do it. Basically, some may be legitimate. Most of them, though, are just trying to. They just don't want to do it. But once you show them how many operations they can do this in, they start thinking a little bit, and that usually stops them from talking about putting the dovetail on. It's very rare that, most people have done dovetails in the machining industry for years. It's not a new concept, so they know about doing dovetails. And to be honest with you, if a guy's doing this, like I've got the medical companies who are doing this, hundreds of parts an hour or what have you, what they'll do, they'll just put dovetails on raw material all day long. They got a little Haas vertical out there, and they're just running the material through, doing the dovetailing, and then cutting the parts to size. If it's a onesie-twosie shop, maybe the guy doesn't really want to get into putting the dovetail on, and sometimes you just can't overcome his thought process. But it doesn't come up a lot that we can't kind of talk them out of it or into it. But just the number of operations is the biggest selling feature when it comes to that objection.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the Raptor stuff? Oh, before I forget, the dovetail. You talk about, you have a customer that says, well, I've got my own dovetail cutters. I can go ahead and put the dovetails on it. And I just had, oh, there it is. One thing I want to show you guys, ours, we recommend a unique, it's our dovetail cutter, and it's kind of hard to tell. But what it does, it's not a traditional dovetail cutter in the sense that it breaks the edges of the I don't know if you can see, the edges on this dovetail are kind of rounded. This dovetail cutter comes in, makes the dovetail, and it busts the edge here, basically breaks the edge, so you're not getting a sharp point into our fixture. And the reason you want that is when you put this into a dovetail fixture, if it was a sharp point, it's trying to find a place to seat inside our dovetail fixture, and it's not finding it, so the part's going to be moving. So if they don't use our dovetail cutter to break the edge of this dovetail, they're going to call back later and say, well, your fixture's not holding my part, it's moving. So I immediately ask them, are you using our dovetail cutter? And 100% of the time, the guy is not using our dovetail cutter. Once he buys the dovetail cutter and uses it, we never hear from him again about the part moving. So it is critical that they use our dovetail cutter to do their dovetail. Do they have to? No, you can do your own dovetail. It'll fit into the fixture, but they're definitely not going to get the rigidity that you would use in our dovetail. And you do run the risk of breaking a corner of the fixture, because that dovetail is trying to find and seat itself, and it's just digging into the fixed side of the dovetail fixture. So, and don't worry about it. I have a habit sometimes of forgetting to quote the dovetail myself when I'm doing a quote. I always forget to quote the dovetail, or the cutter. But any other questions on the Raptor items? I will tell you, the best way to sell Raptor is if you got a guy looking fixturing, get us involved, get Jeff involved, so we can get a print of the pallet that it's going on, and the part that, I don't need a print of the part they're doing, but what kind of part are they doing, and what is it going on, and from there we can get you a setup quoted really easy. Again, Jeff Henry's got the Raptor demo kit in his car. If you got a guy that doesn't know anything about it, get Jeff involved and he can get out there and demo the product for him. And nothing better than a guy playing with it. We do 30-day trials on this, so if a guy's not sure if that's going to work for his project, you know, we got a 30-day trial. You know, give us a test PO, we'll get a product into his hands, and I would have to say 99% of the time we never get the parts back. Cad Drawings also, some are available for download on the website. If you do have any issue getting them, email Jeff or myself or Nick, and we'll get you the CAD models to your customer. That's not an issue. Any other questions?
Raptor stock in Ohio, or does it all come out of California?
It's made in California and shipped to Dayton, so it's halfway to your place.
Good.
Yeah, it's not a 6 or 7 day trip, so yeah, we stock it all here. I mean, we do have some stuff out on the West Coast for those people, but all the stuff for you would be coming out of Dayton. Unless Jeff wants to stock some in his basement.
Plenty of room. It's gotta move some other shit aside.
I'm sorry?
Has to move some other shit aside.
Well, your classroom will be going away here before long, hopefully. Now, about a year ago, at IMTS, we debuted this, it was a little more than a year ago, our Piranha system. As I spoke earlier, we entered into an agreement with the Piranha company out of Switzerland to be the North American distributor for their 0-point system, their self-centering vices, and their coolant line. And for those of you who aren't familiar with 0-point systems, 0-point basically, like Raptor, they have risers and base plates. Piranha does too, but there's female holes on a pallet or base plate that will go onto your machine, and these female holes or receivers receive the locating pins or locating studs that are on the devices themselves, so they snap in. You twist it down, you lock it in place, and then your fixture is fixed. When you're done, you unloosen it, take this off. I can put another one of our vices on it. It goes in the same way. So I've just quickly changed out my setup in just a matter of minutes. On the self-centering, They all come with the 0-point locators. They're on 50mm centers. They're self-centering vices. This is a Geppard vise. This is a snapper. These are 170mm by 90mm. So basically you're talking almost I call them a 4-inch, and then we also have the 6-inch models. They also come as a double station, which means the center jaw is fixed. The two outside jaws then move back and forth, also on the 0-point locating studs. This version is also available in the snapper model and also in the 300mm size. You'll notice the jaws on this one, we call it a snapper because the jaws are serrated. There's a double serration. They're 3mm and tall. So when you put your raw material in there, when it vices it down, it's going to pull it down towards the bed. And because this, you'll notice how low profile this vise is, and because you're using the serrated jaws and the jaws themselves right along this locating rail, you can get 8,000 pounds of clamping force with this little vise right here. In contrast, this one, the Geppard, has the same base as far as this part. It's got the same rails on it that the snapper does, but you can see that we have carrier jaws that are on top of the rails that we attach our machinable jaws to. They snap in like this. They've got little 5 points of location on these little claw feet that go into the carrier jaw. And then from this side, you just take your wrench in here, and there's a cam. You just lock it in place, and those are locked tight. This gets about 4,000 pounds of clamping force versus 8,000 pounds. And out in the field, our biggest competitor with this line right here are really is 5-axis and Lang are really the two people that we run into a lot. 5-axis for a variety of reasons. 5-axis is made out in California. They're a lower cost option than the Lang and the Piranha, so you do see them out a lot because of that feature. They have a wide variety of products as well. The Lang is from Germany, so their pricing is really spot on really with ours. Lang has been around a lot longer, so you run into a lot of these plates in the field that were the Lang plates. And the reason I bring up 5-axis and Lang is because they have the same 0-point style system that uses the locator studs. Their locator studs, though, are in 52mm centers. Ours are 50. So everybody asks, well, can this fit on a Lang or 5-axis base plate? Well, right out of the box, no, because obviously the locator's not in the same position. However, if you want us to do that, we can make these vices with that 52mm spacing and using their 0-point plugs. So the long answer is yes, we can adapt to the Lang and 5-axis, but if you just buy our vices and expect them to fit on the Lang or 5-axis base plates out of the box, they won't do it because they are different. But we do have part numbers for these items with the mounting that will fit. The reason people would want to even do that, why would you do that? I got all these base plates on my shop. Why do I want to get rid of the Lang and the 5-axis and come to ours? The biggest reason that we have people come to us is because we have the lowest bed height in the country or in the industry versus the competitors. That allows for more Z-axis. We have an open bed construction, which means the 5-axis and the Lang vices are built like a boat. The sides are closed. The coolant and the chips just lay inside around your screw segment, so you can damage the screw segment much easier on theirs than you can ours. So the chip evacuation is a huge selling feature with the Piranha system. And I will say probably 99% of the reason people have switched over to this that already have a competitor is because of that chip evacuation. That's just a huge deal out in the field. Now, when we've replaced them, though, like I said, we've had to adapt them to the base plates that they've already had because, to be honest with you, with the Lang and the 5-axis base plates, those usually work very well, and they're not that worried about this part of their setup. It's the vices that they're concerned about. So that's why we adapt to the competitors' plates. We do offer a 75mm version as well. Like I said, this is like basically the 4-inch, then the 6-inch, and this is like a 2.5-inch version with the locating. We also have in this version a direct mount one. There's no locating studs on it, so if a guy's making his own fixture and he wants to use this little vise, he can mount that to a tombstone, to fixture plates, whatever they might have. On the Gepard side, I showed you these are machinable jaws that come on and off.
Got her braced down still.
Yeah. And unloosen it, take it off. We also have different kind of parallels that will also come right in, snap in, depending on what kind of job the guy wants to do. We have machinable in steel in different heights. We also have serrated little parallels that pop in here. So we have just a wide variety of different adaptations to this Gepard vise. The snapper vise is only designed for first operation or raw castings. So you can't replace these jaws. That's what you get, are the serrated jaws. So if I've got a little longer base plate, this will adapt to 2 vices. So I can put this one in, lock it in place on this plate, put my first stop right here. So as I'm doing my first stop, when I'm done with it, I can just flip it over, mount it into the Gepard vise over here, and now I'm ready to finish off my part. So that's kind of the neat feature with that. The base plates do come in various sizes and also diameters. We go from 100 to 210 millimeter in diameter to adapt to any of your indexers that you might have. Jaw lift is a big question we get on our self-serving vices too, and that's another issue that we have replaced some competitors. Our jaw lift is less than 4/10. Our competitors range anywhere from 4 to 8/10 jaw lift. So we have replaced a couple. In fact, Jeff Henry has a couple customers where we have had the customer who was just very upset with the jaw lift that he had on his machine. We sent him a couple of hours, and he was very happy with the minimal jaw lift that we have. Again, because the rails that the jaws ride on is the big reason, and the low profile clamping. If you do have a fixture that you would like to use onto the 0 point, you can get just the locating studs. You can bolt, you can put them in your own fixture that you have in the shop, and then that would adapt to your fixture that you have on the machine. So it's very versatile that way. And if you also have a Raptor fixture, our Raptor fixtures now are coming with 0 point holes in them. So if you wanted to adapt your Raptor fixture to the 0 point system, you just get the locating studs, pop them in, knock it into your 0 point plate, and you're good to go. And along with the risers too, if you've got a Raptor riser, we also have some Piranha risers in the catalog, so you can use the risers that they have. But if you've got a Raptor riser already on your machine, and you're like, man, I'd like to have one of those vices. That's not a big deal, because you buy this adapter plate. It comes with the Raptor mounting already into the face with the locating pin in the bottom. Fits right onto your riser, and now it adapts real easy to my Piranha fixture. So now I've just turned my Raptor riser now into a Piranha fixture using the vices. So as you can see, the adaptability with all the components we have, they're all sort of interwound with each other.
The versatility is critical here. Big selling feature.
Any questions on the Piranha stuff so far? The Piranha items are also stocked here in Ohio, just for information. One of the other things that they did when they were making the Piranha fixture, the guy was using lock line to do his coolant. He'd come back the next morning and the lock line was flipping all over his machine. The nozzles had blown off, it cracked, it broke. So he built a better mousetrap. He did his own coolant line, so he makes his own coolant line called Piranha Coolant Line. It's anodized aluminum. You can get 1100 psi through this without it moving, so you can actually get this mounted to your grinders, your mills, your lathes. Go home at night and it's not going to move. It's going to stay in the same spot. Comes in 3 different sizes, an 1/8 inch, 1/4, and a 1/2 inch, depending on what you're doing. Comes with a variety of different nozzles. Comes with elbows and Ys. Comes with ball valves. It's a Tinker Toy set. You just basically unscrew the components and you build it to wherever you need it to go into your machine. It seals itself so that you can tighten it. So once you tighten it up, now it's a very sturdy coolant line. The best thing to do with the coolant line, again, Jeff Henry's got a demo kit with the coolant line. You get it into a customer and replace what they've got. Let them see how it works. Just tell them about how much better it is. Doesn't really get it. You got to get it in there, put it on the machine, and let them play with it to see. Because a lot of times the operator's like, well, it's doing okay. I don't need to change. Once they put this on and see how it works, then they're sold on it. So, any questions on the coolant line so far? I know that was quick. We're doing another coolant line seminar coming up on Friday and next Friday as well. So if you're interested in actually seeing this out in the shop and how it works, we can easily get you the link to that webinar as well. Any questions so far? We'll leave this open for a little bit afterwards because we're right at about 40 minutes. So if you do, you can stick around. You can type in your questions. You can turn your mic on and ask questions. You can email Jeff or me and Nick, and we'll be glad to get back with you.
Jeff, any questions from your side?
No, I think this is good. Appreciate it. Scott, I noticed it looks like this was recorded. There was a couple guys that couldn't make it.
Yep.
Will we be able to view this again?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We recorded it yesterday, but half of it was cut off. So, but this one's a little bit different because